roll call, please.
Mary Podolsky?
Here.
Jim Allen?
Present.
Allison Williams?
Present.
Mike Skippington?
Here.
Corey Campbell?
Here.
Gary Paul?
Here.
Bukowski's excused.
Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
And please remember our men and women throughout the world in uniform. Okay, I have no changes to the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as proposed.
Second. Motion and a second to approve as proposed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Motion carried. Number 5, action on the minutes from the regular meeting of November 5th, 2019.
Move to approve that.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. Comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda. Is there anybody here who would like to talk about items not on the agenda? Anybody like to talk about items not on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on. 7A, action regarding a requested 4-lot certified survey map for parcel VA-67-A-2 at the intersection of Morris Avenue and Holmgren Way. Aaron.
The requested certified survey map you see up on the screen is to take the current 1 lot and split it into 4 separate parcels of land to accommodate each of the individual buildings as part of the Bohemian Park apartment complex development. As you see, Lot 3 currently proposed Lot 3 currently has the existing apartment building. Then lots 1, 2, and 4 would host individual buildings as well. This is fairly common now, as many financial institutions would rather have 1 building per parcel in a case of any financial difficulties.
In case of what?
Any financial difficulties. It's a result of the 2008 recession. A couple conditions of approval, including recordation of the ingress-egress easement by separate instrument and approval by the Brown County Planning Commission.
So right now, doesn't one firm own the whole thing?
Yes, it does. And that same same ownership group will maintain ownership of these 3 additional parcels. It's actually tied into our development agreement between the development group and the village. That same ownership group has to maintain ownership of those parcels.
Aaron, the only question I have, if they decide to reconfigure these 3 existing lots, is that possible yet?
It is. That can be reconfigured basically, as long as you're not creating a new parcel of land. It would not be reviewed at all by the village per se, but it certainly can be accomplished to reconfigure them.
Okay, all right, very good.
If there are no other questions, I will make a motion to approve with the conditions as applied.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the 4-lot CSM for parcel VA-67-A-2 with staff conditions. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carried. 7B, action regarding requested site plan review for new office building 2181 South Oneida Street, parcels VA-90-4-3, VA-90-4-10, VA-90-4-9, and the west 50 feet of parcel VA-90-4-4. Aaron.
Okay. The requested site plan review is for a new office building. That you saw this previously when the developer came through for the planned unit development for the site. This is for the Nifong Realty Group. They will be raising the existing 1-story building, replacing it with a 4-story, 49,200 square foot office building. Exterior materials of the building consist primarily of red brick veneer, aluminum window systems for all 4 stories. Off-street parking will be located east of the building, along with some on-street parking along Marvell Lane, which does show as angled parking on the site plan. The property has an approved PUD in place, as mentioned. Allows for a building height up to 55 feet. You'll note in the staff report, the plans indicate a building height of 56 feet. Under the village code, there is an allowance for situations like this where a basically conceptual plan is approved at 55 feet or whatever the height may be for a slight adjustment to accommodate that administratively. So we don't have to go through a whole PUD amendment for one foot of height. I'm comfortable with the height of the building at 56 feet administratively. To facilitate the development of the site, as you probably recall, for the PUD, the village and the developer will be swapping some property along Marvell Lane, which is why you see the west 50 feet of parcel VA 90-4-4. In terms of staff conditions, a number of these actually are in the process of being addressed already. The developer and their staff have been pretty proactive in looking at the staff conditions and addressing them already. I'll note those as I can. So for conditions, first two are per the PUD adoption ordinance, including the adoption of a developer's agreement by the Ashwaubenon Village Board, including those items noted there. Approval of the Green Bay Austin Straubel Airport for height permit for anything 50 feet or above in District C does require approval by the airport. Submittal of a revised photometric plan. That actually has been submitted, revised already. The last two, or the next two, are kind of what we always put in here just to make sure no one misses these, which would include screening all rooftop mechanicals and using concealed fasteners for any metal panels. From building inspection, the proposed monument sign needs to conform to all setback and size requirements. There is a monument sign currently that will be located on Marvell that is currently in the vision triangle for the driveway. So we'll work with the developer and their team to make sure that that's not located in the vision triangle to avoid any issues there. The site plan does indicate a projecting or blade sign fronting on Oneida Street, which is a common element associated with this type of architecture of building. You may see it in places like Nashville or similar places that have this type of building. As it stands right now, our ordinance does not allow for projecting or blade signs. To accommodate that projecting or blade sign, it would need to be accommodated through a PUD amendment or go the route of a standard wall sign, which we do permit under our code. We'll be working with the developer on this situation. We'll work through it. So you either see a PUD amendment or a change in signage for that. There were a couple conditions regarding stormwater and engineering, including some calculations, including construction details with sidewalk, curb, and gutter, on-street parking, while submitting a traffic study for review and discussion. The traffic study has been submitted. I did review that with Steve and Doug earlier this afternoon. They're working with the engineer on the project as well to address a couple of questions they had. And then also include details of the underground storage for the stormwater quantity. So stormwater will be addressed through underground storage under the parking lot. Stormwater quality will be handled through the expanded Ashland Pond, stormwater management pond we have on Ashland Avenue. Forestry, they did submit a revised landscape plan that Tim has reviewed already and is satisfied with. And Bike and Ped Committee did request a bike rack on the property to accommodate bike parking. At Site Plan Review Committee, a developer indicated that has already been added to the site plan. The developer and his team are here. If you have any questions for them, otherwise I'm happy to answer any questions that you would have for me.
I would like to ask about the egress onto Marvell Lane with that diagonal parking in there. Isn't that going to be a pretty severe blind spot?
What we're doing is we actually talked with Steve and Doug this afternoon. We sent back to the engineering team a drawing of a bump out similar to what's being proposed on Brookwood Drive for Titletown. So where there's on-street parking like that, having a bump out to help facilitate making sure that there's no blind spot is what we're looking for. So you're correct. That is an issue that we're working through right now. Oh, and I should mention, Site Plan Review Committee did recommend approval of the site plan.
Do you have any idea when you're going to raise the building that's left? The village owns, that's the other apartment, right?
The village does not own that property. That is still owned by Nifong Realty.
I thought someplace in here it says that the village is going to raise that
We will when it becomes the village's property.
after this is approved.
After this is approved, we're going to go through our development agreement that spells out the swapping of the properties and so on and so forth.
Okay, any more discussion?
All right, as Aaron stated, it did go through site plan. We kicked it around, got a few things straightened out. I'll move to approve the project along with the conditions that Aaron pointed out.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented with the conditions that are recommended by staff. Conditions of approval, I'm sorry. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, 7C, action regarding requested planned unit development overlay zoning, PUD, and site plan review for office building at 2465 Marina Circle, parcel VA-1404. Aaron.
Okay, this is a requested planned unit development, or PUD, and site plan review for a proposed new six-floor Class A office building on the currently vacant lot at 2465 Marina Lane, as indicated on the map on the screen. The parcel of land is immediately to the north and west of the Manso Flats apartment building, and the applicant is requesting relief through the PUD for a couple items, including the parking requirement. Our current parking requirement for the site would require 120 off-street stalls per village code. The applicant's requesting allocating for 92 off-street stalls, which would include some covered on the first floor of the building and then off-street as well. Exterior materials of the building will consist primarily of a glass curtain wall system, brick veneer, and natural cut stone panels, with metal panels as architectural accent on the top floor. Uses will be Class A office on floors 2 through 5, and an office, lounge, gym, and exterior patio on floor 6. Floor 1 will be the covered parking, as I mentioned earlier. So in addition to the requested reduction in parking stalls, the applicant is requesting PUD approval for variations to allowable signage on the property. The requested monument signage is proposed to be 18 feet tall from finished grade for a total of 126 square feet. Village code allows up to 10 feet tall and a maximum of 120 square feet. Site Plan Review Committee did recommend moving forward with the monument signage PUD request. The second signage element request is for 2 LED changeable message boards, one on the east elevation, one on the west elevation along the rooftop as indicated on the screen. The applicant has indicated 2 options, being either 14 by 48 for 672 square feet or 12 by 24 for 288 square feet in size. Village code limits electronic message centers to 32 square feet, so this certainly is an increase in that. Village staff is concerned about increase in the LED message center to these sizes due to the precedent it may set for Highway 41 and 172 moving forward. The Site Plan Review Committee recommended moving forward with the PUD for the monument signage, as I previously mentioned, and the parking, but not for the LED message centers. In terms of additional staff conditions of approval for the site plan portion of the project, pending the decision on the LED message board, submittal of revised signage plans meeting the approved PUD and/or village code, approval by the airport. Again, this is in Zone C of the airport zoning districts and is taller than 50 feet. Does require a permit from the airport. Screening all rooftop mechanicals. Submittal of a photometric plan that depicts .1 foot candles or less of illuminance on adjoining non-right-of-way properties. All metal panels are to use concealed fasteners. In terms of stormwater, there's some additional information that Steve will require, including the letter from the DNR that grants maximum extent practicable for total suspended solids and total phosphorus. Public safety does require a verification that the hydrants are within 400 feet of the laydown areas to reach all portions of the building. Forestry did approve the landscape plan as presented. It was very complimentary of it. And similar to the previous project, bike parking compatible with the site would make sense in this location as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, the applicant agent is here as well.
Okay. Well, I will just say what I said at site plan. I had a problem with the original one was much larger, and then there was a 14 by 48 proposed and a 12 by 24 LED signage proposed. And I personally think that we have a lot of frontage on 172 and Highway 41, and it's not a precedent that I would like to set for the village. So that's what my comments on that are. The other signage exceeding the height, I have no problem with that. That's a beautiful sign. I really like that one, but I have an issue with the great big ones up at the top.
I would like to know how the developer can say, this is what my parking is going to be when the second floor, the third floor, and half of the fourth floor are unoccupied. That's part of the question. And the second one is, on the fourth floor, you have a training room. Again, I don't know whether the training is interior or if people are coming to this building for training. And if they are, here comes another, I forget the number, let's say 30 more cars. So,
Could you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Bill Aubrey, W8716 Hortonville. I represent Bayland, the developer for the project. The training center is a fitness center for the primary tenant, so it won't add any parking capacity. So it's for in-building tenants, not for private club or like a YMCA. You won't be adding content for people for parking. So if you work there, you get to use the facility. Does that answer that question?
you're not seeing an increase in the number of cars based on the training?
Correct.
Okay, that
Those
takes care of that
people that
one.
use the building use the training, not people off-site.
Parking coming from, okay.
And the parking related to the other floors is based on an office use, and that's a standard calculation in the ordinance, I believe.
The ordinance would require 128 square feet, 28 stalls, 128 stalls. The proposal is for 92 stalls off-street. Based upon the use of the building for Class A office, we're not going to have cubicle farm in there or anything like that. It's going to be larger office suites. The 128 stalls would be calculated for your standard office where people are really kind of jammed in there. I'm comfortable with the 91 or 92 stalls, I believe it was. I did have a conversation with Mr. Ryan Bedford of Manso Flats, and he did mention that he has a far surplus of parking, even if he filled up his entire building, the off-street parking for his building. He'd be more than happy to talk with the development team about leasing additional spaces if that was needed. Ryan, Mr. Bedford he sees a real benefit to shared parking as opposed to large parking lots that aren't filled.
Aaron, you mentioned off-street parking. Is that street capable of handling off-street parking?
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay, I don't remember the exact width of that. Okay.
Which brings us back to the sign on top of the building. To me, that's a billboard. It's a device being used to sell advertising. I mean, if otherwise it doesn't have to be an LED, it can just be a sign. And once it goes to LED, you're looking at changing whatever is being displayed on that sign. It's on both sides. It's not just a little bit bigger, it's a lot bigger. It's even the small one, it's 10 times the size of the original.
Yeah,
So-
excuse me, the intent of that sign is not a message board. It's intended to be static signage, logos of the tenants, and it would cycle on a 5-minute basis. It's not intended as a message board as the ordinance is calling for the 32 square feet message board. It's intended to display static logo images of the tenants. And the target audience is people moving and driving along 172. Based on view distances and angles, the sign needs to be of that size to be viewable at all from that distance.
It's messages, right?
Message, logos, it's basically signage, and it's not messages. Now, we've had a conversation about that. We're gonna do some more research on how other communities have handled this, and we're not, obviously can't talk about that today because we don't have that information. We'll bring it to the council on the 28th to talk a little bit more about it, but the principal tenant of this building feels very strongly about this signage. As a developer, we're trying to accommodate this tenant, since if they think this is a deal breaker for them, then we'll have to suspend the project. We certainly don't want to do that, so we're trying to find a way to accommodate the village wishes and concerns, as well as this tenant's concerns and issues.
Maybe any sign that size up at Lambeau?
Pardon?
Any sign that size up at Lambeau? Anything to do with the Packers, big sign, huge sign.
Obviously at Titletown, they have the Titletown static sign up on top. But in terms of LED signage like that, there's nothing at Titletown like that, no.
What I said at site plan too is that with the new rules set forth by the Supreme Court, we can only regulate the size. Can't regulate anything that's on it. And they know that they can't do any off-premise signage, so that it can't be technically what they call a billboard, but it is very large. And I'm afraid of setting a precedence going down 172, and what's going to be seen going down 172, and that's why I am not for that sign.
We talked earlier, the Merrill Lynch is 250 square feet of signage, and
Right.
it says that's viewable. We don't, we have the potential to 8 to possibly 10 tenants on this building, and if you're allowed 60 square feet per tenant, we believe the smaller of the two, the 12 by 24, is very close to that aggregate square footage of signage. And, going down 172, if you look at view distances and letter heights for readability, you actually do need to have at least a 3-foot high letter to be able to be seen at the distances that you'll see from 172. So we have supporting data. We submitted supporting data to this. We're trying to find a way where we're not creating an offensive billboard appearance to this, and still manage the content in a way that we can feel that the village would accept it. The primary tenant and us as a developer, we gave a letter of some of the terms that we're willing to comply with. As you said, you can't enforce it, which means tomorrow, if you approve it, we could say, well, we were kidding. That's not the case. We're going to try to find a way where we can come back to you and propose something that can be enforced. I don't know right today, I'm not an attorney, if that's possible or not, but we're going to look into options to see if we can come back and ask with a little bit more assurances for you that you'd be comfortable with that. We put together some data on this. The size of that sign, the larger sign, is 4% of the facade square footage, And we did comparables of like Furniture Row, which is the signage total on that building is 10%. So we're trying to manage the look of the building, the technology used to promote the building in its individual tenants, and trying to be proactive to provide something that's appropriate, that's not a billboard that looks cheap, that looks clash. But we also want to provide you information, so if you get into a situation where you have to worry about other people all asking for the same thing, that if you write in the rules of the PUD, like we're proposing, limiting the size to a percentage, now the 12 by 24 would be even less than 4% of the whole facade of that building. If you had an ordinance that had those limitations related to how bright it is, you can't manage content, but it's the cycling on it, static image, you already have a limit on how long a message board has to be static. It can't change. You know, we're proposing 5 minutes and then a fade in, fade out, so it's not a flash. With the LED boards, we can direct the lighting, so it's not just a broadcast out like a general lighting would be, so that we can avoid the apartment building next door and target the people we're trying to message, which are people on 172. We're going to want to try to provide some more information between now and the council meeting. We just don't have it right now because we had the conversation earlier today. It's something that our tenant feels strongly about. They have told us that to give us our very best effort because it's something they feel strongly about.
You know, I referenced the Merrill Lynch building, and the reason why I reference that is because it might be 200 and some square feet, but it's letters. It's not a big square that changes. It's static letters that are on the side of the building. When we had our internal discussion about this, it talked about the Titletown sign. Again, it's a huge sign, but it's letters. It's static letters. So could your tenant, ABC, taco shop, I don't know what it's going to be, I'll just say that, could they just make a static sign?
So if there's 8 tenants there, and to make it viewable from 172, again, the target is 172 for the tenants. This is an amenity for the building to sell the building, promote the building as a professional office building, and give individual advertisements. So Merrill Lynch advertises with their sign.
Right.
So we have probably 8, maybe 10 tenants in this building, and each one of them wants to sell who they are as an entity so people have name recognition, logo, and the text. So Merrill Lynch has the logo, the bull, and the text. And so we want to put on that message board something of comparable size for each of our individual tenants. And that cycle of 5 minutes, it's static for 5 minutes, fades out, and the next tenant fades in.
Right, I understand that.
So it is static,
But Merrill Lynch is static there for 365 days a year.
and that's one tenant,
Right.
not 10.
So there's one tenant in that whole building?
No, there's not. There's the potential for 8 to 10 tenants.
No, in the Merrill Lynch
I
building.
don't know. I don't know anything about beyond the size of that sign.
3 or 4.
Yeah, there's more than just Merrill Lynch.
I think
So-
there's signage on the north, the west,
Anyway.
and the south, I think,
So
so.
what we're going to look at, if you look at the design of the building, not that can't change, but trying to figure out how we would do it in a classy way, 8 to 10 different logos of 8 to 10 different configurations and 8 to 10 different colors. And that arrangement to create something that doesn't, I don't know, maybe cheapen the aesthetic of the facility. This is a professional office building. We don't want it to look like a retail strip mall that has 8 to 10 signs, all various sizes and colors and configurations.
Right.
That's the primary reason they want to have that static video sign with a rotating sequence of the logos.
Right. I understand it. I'm just saying that I don't.
I understand
want to
your
see that.
concerns, but we think if the guidelines or precedents were set with a specific controlled guidelines, that wouldn't proliferate into a lot of video boards, large flashing
Right.
signs all over, as long as it's, if, maybe it has to be part of your ordinance, I don't know, but this tenant feels strongly about it, and they've asked me to convey that to you, and so I am.
Yeah, I understand. Okay,
All right, again, it went through site plan this afternoon. We were in favor of the monument sign. They are putting up a nice building, there's no doubt about it. The ordinance does not allow signs of that nature, or that size on a building. We did recommend a 32 square inch
square foot.
sign on there. So if there's no other questions, I'll move to approve with the exception of the large sign they're proposing and allow them to have a 32 square foot sign.
Second?
There's a mo-
With the
I have a quick
condition.
question.
With the question.
So if we approve this and they come back with signage, we then approve the signage?
They would have to come back with different signage.
Okay,
Yeah. We're approving the PUD
for the building.
for the building with the larger monument sign and the decrease in parking.
Okay, so the 12 by 24 or whatever could come back at what, for us to talk about or something like that? Or when they bring up the sign?
Correct.
Okay, that's all.
Did-
Thank you.
Okay, so if this was like standalone, if it wasn't on top of the building, it's something like 41 when you're going down by the Appleton Mall, there's a message board there that says, I don't know, Sears is having a sale of whatever, and it changes, and that's what this thing is hitting me as. It's like if you said you do this for this, let's just really go crazy here and do it for the mall out here, and everybody wants to have their sign out in front of the mall that says, I don't know, the little kid stores are in
Yeah,
here, or
yeah.
the Shopko used to be
Right.
here, the Yonkers used to be here, and everybody's got that sign. Theoretically, this thing could be enormous.
Correct. I understand why a business wants it. I was in business for 40 years. I get it, I understand it, but sitting in the seat I sit in, I have to really be careful of the precedents that it sets. So that's my concern. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. This will go to village board on
Are we
the,
allowing them to come back with an alternative?
They'll bring it to the village board.
it'll be at village board, but then they are also allowed to, when they get a signage package, they're allowed up to 32 square feet up there. But once they get a signage package, that has to come back for approval.
Right. So there'll be a public hearing for the proposal on January 28th. That'll be at 6:30 here in the Village Hall boardroom. And then, say they come back with signage that just straight up meets our code. So they have the monument signage with the PUD, which they got approved for today, or it will get reviewed and acted upon for village board. Pending village board approval of that monument signage, if they come back with the monument signage that meets that approval, and then other signage that just meets our sign code, that would just be permitted through a permit process like anyone else would. If they're looking to basically go with a larger sign, that will go through a PUD amendment and come back through the process.
Okay? Okay, any items for next agenda? I have none. Need a motion to adjourn, please.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.